Okay, so I think it's like day 3 and I'm back at Tom's and he has built the next component that's going to be installed within this framework and that's going to hold up the TV. So let's go take a look at it. Now he has used the same kind of techniques we've observed in all the other videos, right? So he's got a 2x6 or such down there at the bottom. And then he's got these guys, and he screwed them right in, like he's been doing. Right? They're all screwed and not nailed in, one right after the other. And there's a mating one up at the top. Once again, all screwed in. But then Tom did this clever thing. He put this brace in the back, and it also is screwed in to all the other, the 4 beams that are going up there. And the purpose of that is 2 things. It's the same thickness as this board right here. So when the whole thing is elevated, it's going to fit right into this pocket, and it's going to position these 3 beams right here at the correct distance away from the wall. Then, and he's got one hole drilled already, he's going to drill this beam, screw this beam right into studs that are on the wall. So he'll have one here, and he'll have one here, and he'll have one over here. So then, once that whole thing is up there, and he's got those bolts in place, this thing is never coming down. I mean, you could hang elephants off of it. So that's not only a good idea, this brace, because it keeps all the boards aligned, it also keeps them at the proper center distance. Because, some of these things at the length they are could have wanted to wander in or wander out, and now they don't. They're exactly positioned on the 16-inch centers that he wanted to match the stud construction of the house. So that back brace is going to hold them there. It's going to secure the entire thing to the wall. I mean, in addition, Tom is going to come in, and he's going to put screws in through the side here, right into these guys, as well as the ones up at the top. But now we're also going to have these 3 bolts here, here, and here, that are going to secure that thing to the wall. And I swear to God, a hurricane will come through here and knock the whole house down, but this will still be standing. We'll be able to watch TV and turn on the fireplace if there's power. So the next thing you see, we should have that thing up there in the air and all bolted in.
That's the plan.
So here we are, and look at that. It's in, and it fit like a glove. Went right in there perfectly. Boy, Tom does good work, man, I'll tell you. And he's in the process right now of screwing it in. He's already lagged the bolts into that back brace we talked about. So you can see those. Those are already up there. You got 3 of those in place. And he's put some screws in up here to hold that end in. Now he has moved his way over here. And that upper edge, you can see, maybe you can't, but the upper board is a little proud of the sideboard. So Tom has got a, what'd you call it? Dremel?
Multi-tool, but it's also called an oscillating tool.
Oscillating tool. So we're going to look at that in a second. In fact, it's laying right there. There it is. And he's going to use that guy to shave some of that board that is lagged to the wall, that right-hand side. He's going to try to dig around under there and remove some of that wood so that that top piece can sit back just a little further. Because right now it's sticking out about 1/16 of an inch or so. So this is an advanced technique, I think. We're going to watch him do it.
Learn as you go, technically.
And we're gonna see how he makes out with it. This is a power tool, not battery operated, because it's going to be doing some heavy lifting. Hold on, don't put that up there yet.
Okay, you ready?
Nope, nope, nope.
Oh,
So now you can see how much, I don't know if you, hopefully you can see this. He's actually taken off a fair piece of wood with that little gadget. I think he's going to try to take a little more off to the left of it, but that's what that tool was able to do for him. Wow. Keep going. Okay, here we are again. We're going to catch up to Tom and see what he's got done. Oh, look, he's got some shiplap on it already. Beautiful. Clearly, he's got the cutout for where the fireplace is going to go. We'll have to talk to him about how he did all that. And let's see what's all going on here. So he's nailing it up against the sideboards and also along the whole length here. You can see that. So he's nailing it everywhere he can to get it to lay flat. All right, and you can see from the edge, if any of you aren't familiar with it, how these pieces overlap like this, right? That's why they call it ship lap, I guess, as opposed to ship overlap. But anyway, it's the same idea. So here's Tom. Tom, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Hey, things are looking pretty good.
Yeah, moving on.
So, you know, for the unindoctrinated, of which I are one, and I'm looking at this, I mean, like usual, there it is, and I can see it all, but what kind of things did you have to take into consideration? For example, I don't know, does this board come in a standard size or different sizes, and how did you pick this one? And
Well, this is the one I picked because I did not want a lot of lines. If I pick one smaller, the smaller it is. 11 feet, you're going to have more lines.
more break lines between the
Break
individual
lines,
boards,
right. So I
okay.
wanted to kind of maximize the space between the lines.
Okay.
So I use this one, which is a 6.5-inch profile. So from the top of the board that shows to the bottom of the board that shows is 6.5
Okay,
inches.
gotcha, that shows, all right.
That shows,
Okay.
right.
Okay,
So first thing to do is to realize that 132 inches high, 6.5-inch pieces, if you use division, it comes out to 130 inches for 20 pieces, so you got 2.5 inches left over.
so if you use the boards as they are, and just you started obviously from the bottom going up,
Right.
right?
Right.
You're saying that you calculated that by the time you got all the way up to the top, you'd had 2 inches of dead space left.
2.5 inch.
2.5 inches.
2.5 inch board, and these aren't exactly, they don't always come all the way down. So it might have been 2 inches, might have been 1.5 inches. It kind of depends
Okay.
on
Okay.
how it's going when it put up.
Okay.
So the first thing is to determine how big the bottom board is, because that's where you're starting. Everything goes up from there.
Because you could take the entire 2.5 inches off of that board, and in theory, then the rest of it would stack up and hit the ceiling at 11 feet, although you're telling us that there could be.
That's the last thing you want to do is do the bottom first, down to the leftovers, because who knows if you're going to get to those exact leftovers.
Okay.
So what you want to do is you want to pick a bottom board size. It gives you a relatively reasonable size at the top.
I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
Well, in other words, you want a board that's probably like 3 inches or so at the top.
At least, okay.
You don't want very small,
You don't want to sliver.
half an inch,
Okay.
3/4 of an inch.
You want something
right?
with some meat to it.
You want something that you can put
Yeah.
nails in and without
Okay,
falling
okay.
all the pieces.
All right. Okay.
So-
Gotcha.
The other thing to consider is, like in this case, you have break points here and here, at the bottom and the top.
Oh, right. Right.
Yeah, the same thing applies. You don't want real little tiny boards at the bottom.
Right.
You don't want tiny boards at the bottom.
And so, yeah. So I can see the way you've done it. It looks about even, bottom and top. That was another consideration. Okay. You have to take that into consideration. Okay.
So what I did was I just measured up here, found where this was, and then picked different starting sizes, starting piece sizes, starting with 6.5. and see where they come out. And if you start with 6.5, this one comes up pretty high. This one comes up pretty high.
You mean if you start with 6.5 all the way at the bottom, a full board, then when you do your math, you'd have had a little tiny sliver on one side of the fireplace and too much meat on the other side. Okay.
So what I did was I did my calculations and I decided to start with 5 inches. So it's 1.5 inches lower than it would have been if I started with a full board. Now, there's another reason that I did it that way. At the end, I'm going to come through and put baseboard and shoe molding on here.
Just like you have right now on the bottom of the wall, on the current wall? Mm-hmm. So you're going to continue that.
I'm going to put it in the front, and I'm going to put it to the back. So it's going to look like one continuous piece
okay,
going around the corner.
Right.
And that is 5 3/4 inches. So what I didn't want to do was have the line on the first one be right above the 5 3/4 inch baseboard. So I lower it down to 5 inches. So now the 5 3/4 baseboard will cover this line here, the bottom line.
And that didn't upset your other calculation for how much above and below the fireplace you wanted?
It did not. It actually made it better because it dropped this one down and it dropped this one down. This one would have been okay, but that one would have been.
When you say dropped it down, what do you mean?
Because if I used a full 6.5 inches, this board would start right here.
Oh, you mean it dropped the line formed by the board came down. I got you. I got you.
And that means a bigger chunk of wood here to be able to nail and stuff. Otherwise, I would have had a very small skinny thing. And it would have been difficult to nail without splitting the wood.
So that worked out for you then when you take into consideration your bottom molding and the amount of meat, I call it meat, you want exposed on the top and bottom of the fireplace. It worked out pretty well.
Worked out pretty well. So it's basically adding 1.5 inches at the top, which was going to be 2.5 inches by calculations. So now it'll be closer to 4 inches.
Which is a decent size of thickness, width of the board, I mean.
We're intending on putting crown molding, and that will be around 3.25 inches. So, it should work out just fine.
Gotcha.
And if the lines are close, it'll be close.
So there definitely was more than meets the eye to take into consideration for what is your bottom board going to be. Because now that I'm looking at it more closely, that bottom board is definitely not a full board.
Correct.
And you had to calculate all of this, taking into considerations what you just talked about, the amount of meat above and below the fireplace, the molding coming off from around the wall that's going to go around the front of it. Okay. Yep. And it looks pretty good. It looks pretty good. Now, you don't have a piece of that molding, right? But you know that molding is 5 and something inches tall?
It's 5 3/4. I think it might even be 5 5/8. I don't remember.
So when it comes around here, it'll cover that bottom line. It'll cover that bottom. Perfect. Look at that.
And it'll look like almost a full board to start.
Yeah. Right. So there's another. Once again, another bit of planning. You know.
Plan.
Right. Measure twice, cut once. Plan.
This was, you had to plan this even before you bought your lumber, because if you bought smaller ones, it changes everything in terms of where your spacing is going to be. So you got to plan ahead.
You know, I'm thinking about it, and being mostly a nerd, I would have probably used something like Microsoft Excel to calculate all that using variable this, variable that. And if there's any nerds watching this video,
absolutely,
they could do a thing like that too.
Absolutely.
Excellent. All right.
And bigger jobs like, for instance, if you're doing a basement or something where you have a kind of extensive materials list, that's another good place to do it, because you can calculate your number of pieces of lumber.
Right.
And multiply it out to get an idea of what your costs are going to be.
It's a different kind of a tool. We've been talking about tools.
If you can use software, and you can use a software tool, by all means do it.
Not necessary, but a big help if you can.
Right, exactly.
And I noticed when I walked in, you've got your nail gun out here.
I got my nail gun out.
Ooh.
Now, that's one of my nail guns. I have a couple of them. I have ones that are fuel-fired. This is driven by an air compressor. The biggest difference is...
What was the first one? Joule-fired?
Fuel.
Fuel-fired.
Fuel-fired.
Oh.
And the problem with that is it's much louder than a air fire gun.
Okay.
And so if you have hearing issues or you
Gotcha.
don't want to have hearing issues, it's sometimes good to avoid those and
Okay.
go with the air compressor instead.
So you've got a nail gun, which you're probably going to be able to demonstrate to us and show how that
Absolutely.
works. And it's being fed by this little air compressor.
Mm-hmm.
So, we talked at the very beginning of the video earlier on how, if anybody wants to attack a job like this, get the right tools, get good stuff, and
Get the right tools. You can buy them, you can rent them, you can borrow them.
right,
Just
right. But if you intend to do projects like this, or others of its kind anyway, having the tools is always more handy than having to go rent them and
I've got
borrow
a
them.
very large compressor that I use for hardwood floors because the staples are much heavier.
Okay.
Take a lot more pressure. They take 120 psi. This only takes probably around 80.
The nail gun, yeah.
Yep.
There's also a volume of air required there after a while, but okay,
Yes.
cool. Now, one other thing is crossing my mind, Tom, that I wouldn't have a clue on how to do this. I'm going to walk over here. So I'm looking at an exposed corner, right? Mm-hmm. I know you're going to put more pieces of shiplap right here, right?
Correct.
Coming along here. That'll meet up with this. Mm-hmm. But what are you going to do for the corner? Are you going to miter those together to blend them, or
Well,
what exactly?
you can miter them. That's a very difficult task. And the reason it's difficult is because they have to be mitered and fit absolutely perfectly on both ends. So
Right.
It's you might get it right on one end and a little bit off on the other end.
okay.
So now you got to keep
Okay.
fudging it until you get it right on
Gotcha.
both ends. So
Gotcha,
that's
okay.
difficult. So here, I have a couple of options. I'll take the boards on this side, take them all the way up almost to this edge.
Okay.
They will line up with these boards
Okay.
and be level. And then I have two options. One is to put a corner piece of molding. It goes over both sides, nail it in.
Oh, corner molding.
Corner
It'll
molding,
actually
right.
wrap right
Outside
around.
corner molding.
Outside corner molding.
Right.
Okay.
That's one. The other is, and I will probably go this direction, is to put a piece of probably 1x2 or 1x3 wood all the way down on top of the surface and then butt the
Okay.
sideboards to it.
Okay.
So that I have a nice straight line. It's hiding all the edges.
Right.
And I think that will actually work out for me. That's a better solution.
Because what we want at the end here is a very clean line.
You don't want to see any wood, any lumber. You don't want to see any
All
wood
right.
edges of anything.
Okay, great. Oh, my thing's flashing at me, running out of tape.
Okay.
Time to change the tape.
Good, great.
All right. So Tom, I'm looking at this thing, and all this, already we've got a lot of good knowledge out of this, but I'm looking at that opening now, and I can clearly see that the top and bottom boards had to have this odd chunk cut out of them. How did you do that? How did you
Well,
cut that out?
There's a couple ways you can do that. One, probably the most common one, is to drill some holes and use a coping saw. It would take you probably half a day to do each one. It's just that.
Are coping saws a manual thing or a power
They're
thing?
manual.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you can, if you've got a good set of tools, you can also get like a band saw to cut it. There are tools that are made for doing just that. However, it's not a common household tool.
Sure.
It's fairly expensive and they're fairly heavy. So if
Yeah.
you got a workshop, yeah, you might have one. If you don't, then you probably don't have one.
Right.
I chose to do this with the oscillating tool that I used up above.
Oh, okay.
It's fairly tedious because it cuts about an inch wide. And
Okay.
what I did was I marked where the openings were and marked them on the face of the board to make sure that I wasn't off by a little bit on the other side. And then cut on each side up using my chop saw.
Okay, we saw that at the beginning of the
Right.
video.
What I
Okay.
cut the length of every board with.
Ah,
And you got to be careful because I'm only cutting part way through
Right.
the blade length. So you got to kind of position it and make sure you don't go too far.
when you used your chop saw, you didn't go all the way through.
go all the way through, this, but,
Yeah, yes.
but not all the way, with the board all the way in.
Yes, right. Well,
Pull the
not-
board back.
otherwise you would just cut the length of,
Too far, right.
okay,
All right, so I did that, and then I took and marked the two corners, took a straight edge, okay, aluminum straight edge.
yeah,
Marked the board with a line.
Okay.
From corner to corner. And I
okay.
took the oscillating tool.
Oh, back to that tool again.
Yep, back to that tool, which is about an inch, maybe an inch and a quarter wide.
Yeah, we saw that in the video when you were up there chiseling away at that
Yeah.
wood. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this is a lot more chiseling than that was.
Okay.
So what I did was I just kind of scored the whole thing,
Uh-huh.
went back, scored it, and then do what you call a plunge cut.
Now well, backing me up now. Scored it? What's scoring?
Scoring is when you make an indentation, if you will, in
Okay.
something. Like with a utility knife or with a oscillating saw. You're just kind of digging into it a little bit, not cutting all the way through,
Oh,
but just kind of getting your line so you have a trough, if you will, in the wood that the blade will keep going into. That's scoring.
Okay, okay.
Standard scoring. And then I would use the oscillating tool to kind of do what they call a plunge cut, which using the corner to dig the tool in, turning it the other way to dig it in, pushing it through, so it would cut the inch and a quarter. Got to do it all the way across on this board, all the way across on that board. Cumbersome in terms of time, took me probably an hour to do these two cuts. But, you know, they came out exactly as they needed.
Right. So you drew the line from corner to corner, and then you used the oscillating tool to actually help score it to create a little, groove kind of thing.
So that your saw doesn't slide off.
Right, right. And then you plunged it in, and you kept is a continuous repeat of plunge, plunge, plunge,
Well,
plunge.
you kind of use the corner. Cuts best with the corner when you're going into something like this. So you use the corner to kind of dig into it, turn the saw, so go
Yeah.
the corner the other way.
You don't have it here, do you?
I don't. I mean,
I'd kind of like to see that, at least.
well, we can probably show on a piece of wood when we're done here.
Or either that or just go through the motions right now on this piece of
Well,
wood,
okay.
if you have it.
All right, let me
All right, hang
turn
on.
my saw. Here's the oscillating tool.
Right, so Tom went and got the oscillator.
Mine's called a Dremel Multimax. There are different brands of it. This is the one where I went up and dug the wood out
Yes,
above.
yes.
Okay, in this case, I'm going to use this blade, which is a wood blade, to cut through that.
Okay.
So what I did was I cut in with my chop saw,
Right, you
marked
made,
the two things, put a line, and then took the blade like this and just kind of went along the line. So
oh,
scoring it, making it, indenting it to the point where I know exactly where the line is and I don't have to keep this on the line.
was that difficult? I mean, that seems like something that I could screw up pretty easy, or?
It's not difficult, but you gotta control your tool.
Right,
I
right,
mean,
okay.
it's not a simple thing. The first time you do it, you make a mess out of the board.
Okay.
So I would practice a little bit ahead.
Ah,
But anyway,
good point.
once you scored it, you kind of go in the score line at an angle. When the score line at an angle, go straight in,
Okay,
all the way through.
all right.
And you'll cut a piece about that big. So,
Gotcha,
you know, when you got
gotcha.
to go across,
And that's why it
50
took
inches,
30 minutes to do that.
takes a long time.
All right, okay.
And this will burn the wood. It does get hot, so you
Oh, yeah,
have to
right,
be aware.
right. You see that down there. Yep, yep.
That's what I use. Again, there are a zillion different.
Yep.
I take the safe way, which
I was going to say, this is pretty safe. If you
is
start,
very safe.
yeah, if you start handling saws, power saws that you're not comfortable using, you could be in trouble.
They catch. Like if you try to plunge into this
Yeah.
with a saw and it catches, the saw goes flying. Okay?
Yeah.
Maybe with the blade spitting. Who knows?
Right, right.
So
So,
I
okay.
avoid things that are beyond my risk level.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Smart
anyway.
suggestion. And of course, these little burn marks don't matter because the fireplace is going to go in there and it's got a flange that's going to screw into the front of that. It'll cover it all up. So
Right.
Thank-
None of the edges will show.
thank you for getting that tool and showing that. See, Tom's a worker bee. And when I'm away without the camera, he just goes ahead of me, and which is fine. You know, it's up to me to get here on time, and I didn't see that part of it, and I wanted to make sure we had some kind of an understanding of what it took to do that.
Again, you know, you can come up with your own method. That was mine.
Yeah, and it was safe.
It was safe.
And it just took a little more time,
A lot
but you have all your fingers and all your toes and your nose on your face and everything
Yes,
like that,
yes.
so that's all good stuff.
No tools embedded in me either. My point of putting another row up,
Okay,
and what I'd like to do is go out first and cut this board. I have 6 more boards downstairs. I paint the edges of them because when they get tight together like that, it's hard to get a brush in. Now, in my case,
oh,
I'm painting them white, so it doesn't really make too much difference, but I painted the edge,
okay,
okay, so that when it's up there, and if I paint it, that's fine. This is already taken care of.
because your intention is to paint it after
I'm
everything's
gonna paint it, and I'm gonna paint it the same as the baseboard. The baseboard
right,
is white.
and so that's the paint you use to pre-painting
Right.
your edge
The
here
edge here and the edge here.
and the edge up there.
Okay, and you gotta make sure that when you do that, you get all the paint off, because otherwise it will keep this from seating on the board below it.
Oh,
Okay, so you gotta be real careful about your paint. You don't want drips.
don't want drips on the back
back,
side.
yeah.
And something like that while you're
Well,
painting.
yeah, paintbrush.
Yeah, or that, yeah.
Get handy with
Smooth it out and make sure it's not bubbling up and,
Right, make sure there's not excess paint hanging on.
all right,
All right, it's gonna take this out to cut it, and I've got one more thing to show when we cut it. How to
Okay.
use the saw.
let's follow Tom.
Call me. I got to back to making my measurement anyway, but I'm sure it's 72.
I'm gonna hold the door.
No, thanks.
Oh, we're back to,
The board,
oh,
it's just a little damage on one end or the
you
other.
say the first thing you do is look at the board?
Look at the board, just make sure there's no damage anywhere.
Okay.
Like if you have something in here, not much you can do to use the board. If you have something towards the end, you know, just use it to line this, but. I'm gonna measure 72 inches.
Now, when you had, earlier you had said you kept the two ends on either side of the board, right?
Sorry?
You said you kept the two end pieces on either side of the board?
One end piece,
Oh, just one end piece?
just one end
Oh,
piece.
okay,
I cut
okay.
it in half, or sort of half later.
So what Tom was talking about earlier was that he only needs 6 foot of this board to go across the front of the fireplace, but these are 8-foot boards. But he is going to need end pieces to go around to the side. So he's been marking and saving the end pieces from the previous board he has cut, so that when it comes time for him to make those little side end pieces, he'll make them out of the exact same board that's going across the front, which I think is a very clever catch there, the kind of thing I wouldn't have thought of doing. And that'll make sure that if there's, any peculiarities in the planing or creation of those boards, that they should match. Although we also discussed how he's going to put that little, 1x2 piece of molding in the front there. So it might not matter, but it's a good thing to do anyway.
If the boards aren't even, it doesn't make any difference what you mold it with. If they're offset like that, they'll always be offset.
Yeah, they'll always be upset, yeah.
All right, I'm gonna cut this. Let our bond clip first.
You gotta plug it in again.
All right, plug both places.
That's why Tom needs me here, to help him plug things in, or at least point it out that they need to be plugged in.
That was what I used for the journal. You always want to make sure you get it flush against the fence.
Right, right.
Otherwise, you won't be cutting straight through the board. All right, now we're going to make sure this is right, and then I'll show you how we set the saw so that the other ones don't even need to measure.
Got the, yep.
Make sure it's not too long.
Oh, okay. That's what you're doing there?
That's what I'm doing here. Oh, it's good.
Okay.
This is a good length board. Should work all the way up considering we plumbed everything in the beginning. Now we can go and cut some more boards.
Okay.
I'll show you how to set up the saw to do so.
Oh, neat.
This is the correct length. And move this within the saw. Put it up to the saw.
Mm-hmm.
Take this end of the saw. Slide it in. Tighten this up, so it stays in place. Now, when
Oh, that, okay,
go to
right.
my next board,
Did it move a little bit? And the,
yeah, we'll just go with it. It's actually some, it's probably not quite right on the fence. Move it back just a little bit. Yeah, I'd rather be short than long. Yeah, that'll work.
that'll work?
So now, every time I take a board off, I just put it on here, push it against the end there, and I'm at 72
And you're at
inches.
72 inches.
So it takes the garment to measure each one of them out of that.
And again, even if you were off by 1/8 of an inch, you're gonna wind up putting that molding on the edge of it anyways, as long as, yeah, cool. So that's an efficiency tool there.
Yep.
You don't have to do that measuring thing every bit, you just line them up and cut, line them up
If
and
you're
cut.
doing something like a basement where you have studs cutting,
Yeah,
you may be cutting 100 studs, and, you know, you want it to be easy to do, and that makes it easier to do.
yeah, sure.
They all come out the same.
So are you in cutting mode now or nailing mode?
I'm gonna nail.
Oh, you're gonna
I
nail.
got that set up so
Ah,
that it'll
cool.
cut the next one.
Cool.
So I'm gonna nail, show you how to nail one. Make sure the board is positioned. All right, I got feel the nail is sticking out a little bit. And before I put a piece of wood on it, I'll make sure it's all the way in. So use a punch.
Ah, you mean the previous nails from the bottom board might have come loose or be sticking out. So you check them and you're gonna make sure they're firmly in before you lay the next one on top.
Okay. So that's on there. It should be level, considering the last one was, although the gap looks kind of large there. Okay, round. So let's see how we're doing level.
So I'm seeing, from where I'm sitting, I'm seeing an air gap between the level and the top surface you were laying it on.
Air gap.
Yeah, I can see light in there.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
I'm just pointing it out because I don't know what I would do with that if I,
Uh, well, I mean, I can, if, as long as it runs level, I can
okay,
do in the ends and then try to push the metal.
gotcha.
But there's no real reason to do that.
So for sure, that right side gap over here looked bigger.
Yes, it does look. I'm gonna start on that side. Watch your ears.
So you can't just rely on how they seem to nest together.
No, no, you can't rely on that.
Okay. So you're confirming that they're level and especially that the gap between the mating boards, by which I mean this thing right here, looks even all the way across.
Yeah, it's not gonna be, it's wood. It's not,
Right.
I mean, if you pay 10 times as much for the boards, they would probably be perfect.
But you can achieve a pretty pleasing visual result just by exercising the care you are right now
Yes,
as you nail it in place. So now you're going to nail the other end,
correct.
and that's going to pretty much pin the position of that board. Good. So for you viewers out there, what the noise you just heard was from the compressor. See, this particular nail gun uses the power of compressed air to drive those nails through the wood, and the little red tank can only hold so much compressed air. So as it gets used up in the course of driving nails, well, then the compressor has to turn back on basically to refill the tank. And that's what you heard. That was the noise. And when it reaches the desired pressure, it shuts off again and ready to nail. Or as you saw Tom doing, you can just keep nailing while it's running. So, I see that you put in nails on every stud and along the top. So you've got them here at that point, and then usually you've got one there, there, and there on every board. You didn't put one here. I don't know
I'll get one there.
if you needed one, but and the whole process, as we were discussing, you can't just rely on the board sitting on top of the other one where they overlap to make sure you've got a nice level fit and a nice visual gap. So there's a little bit of fudgy-coo, which is a technical term,
Sure.
where you had to, use your level and judge by eye whether or not you thought the gap was reasonable on both ends, and then you pinned the one gap, and then once that one was locked in place, you did the other one, and once you had those two locked in place, it was just a matter of going across and putting the nails in.
Right. Now, when you measure this on this line here,
Yes.
it's perfectly true. When you measure it here, it's off just ever so slightly.
Okay.
And that's because when they plane the board and create the board, it's not 100% accurate all the time. So.
Right.
And that kind of affects the gap too a little bit. You
Sure.
might have a bigger gap here and there because of the way the board is on the top here. And that's the surface that I say you gotta watch when you paint it.
Sure.
Make sure you don't have.
Yeah. So I'm trying to recall without rewinding the tape, which surface did you have the level on?
I put the level on this surface.
Okay.
Okay, which is the line, if you will.
Yes.
And then I put the level on the top,
Just to compare them?
just to compare them.
Okay.
And that's a little bit off. Not a lot, but it's probably a 16th, maybe a little bit more than that.
So now it's a matter of cutting more boards, and you've already got your saw set up out there to do that. And I guess these are them, right? No, yeah?
No, these aren't painted.
Oh, okay, these aren't
Half a
painted.
dozen downstairs are
Oh,
painted.
okay.
The next half a dozen used.
And then you bring them out, you cut them to length, and then you repeat. Do exactly what we just saw you do. Repeat until you get all the way up the top. And of course, you'll have to bring your step ladder back into play eventually here.
My big ladder, yes.
Yeah, your big ladder.
Now, the other thing too, you gotta be a little careful when I'm doing this. You wanna make sure that, putting a TV mount, it hits the studs exactly, okay? Now, this, if you put the stud finder on here, you're not gonna find these studs.
Oh, what a
'Cause it's
great,
wood.
what it,
It's gonna find this wood. It might find that, I don't know, but it's not gonna be very accurate.
on my way over here, I had that question in mind, and of course, being of advancing age as I am, it drifted right off my Teflon memory. But I was thinking that exact thing, and I was wondering whether or not when you put the stud finder, if it would have worked, that's the question, and was it going to find this stud right here, or there are studs back here too behind
I won't
that?
find them back there.
Okay, well, that's too far back?
Way too far back,
All right,
yeah.
not that sensitive, okay.
But it might find these with the deep stud finder, because it's more solid wood than this is. but
Okay.
I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
I'd have to read the stud finder
And
directly.
you don't have the stud finder here to check it
No.
with right now, okay. All right, that's all right.
The other thing I gotta do is, as I'm going up, is when I get close to the position for
Yeah.
the support for the TV.
Right.
What I'll do is,
Put a pencil mark on these
well,
notes.
you can't really do that because I'm not sure exactly where, but what I'll do is I'll mount the bottom two holes and actually drill the holes before I
Oh,
put the next one up.
okay.
So that when I put the next one up and I can't see this anymore, I'll know where it is because
Okay.
it's exactly in line with the ones down here. So, but that's a ways up yet.
That's a ways up.
Little ways up.
Little ways up. Because you're going to have a mantle in here one of these days.
Yes, and
And the TV will go above that.
we have not picked out a manhole yet. It's bone of contention, sort of. But we will pick out a manhole, and Susan will love it.
Okay. And then, of course, that's where the boards. So you won't be drilling any holes yet, or unless do you know where the mantle is going to go, regardless of which mantle you ultimately pick?
No, I don't even know how the manhole's going to attach.
So if you're going to plan on continuing putting these boards up now, you really don't know where the TV is going to go yet.
I kind of do. I mean,
Okay.
I got an idea.
So you're saying that you're gonna put the TV mount in place and then the mantle will have to fall between it and the fireplace?
Correct.
Gotcha, all right. Something's gotta be
I'll put the fireplace in and everything, paint these up, put the fireplace in,
Yep,
and then as I go up, I'll have a better idea.
but you will have holes in place already for the TV mount.
Right. I
Okay.
will do the TV mount before I get up to the top, because I don't want to
Gotcha.
have to, end up just slightly off center on
Yeah.
the studs.
Right, you wanna be right dead in the middle of them,
I'll be right dead in the middle.
okay. And you're not sure that the stud finder will be an accurate
I would not trust it to find a
Okay.
little stud behind
piece of wood?
a ship-out wall.
Okay,
All right.
yeah, excellent.